Hi, I'm Amy Sands Brodoff, and I'm going to share an excerpt from my new novel and stories, The Sleep of Apples, with a beautiful cover by Val Fillard. Apples centers on 9 closely linked characters who are confronting crises related to mental illness, mortality, sooner rather than later, and gender identity. They're quite diverse, but come together in the Montreal neighbourhood of Saint-Henri. Recently, in a CBC interview, I was asked by the interviewer, Richard King, whether I steal. Now, Richard wasn't talking about robbing banks or breaking into jewelry stores. He was talking about stealing stories. And my answer was yes. After my beloved father's death, I discovered a family secret. When he was 5 years old, he contracted measles. His little sister, 3 at the time, caught it from him and died. My father felt that his parents, my grandparents, and particularly my grandma, never really forgave him. And this was the great trauma of my dad's life and really shaped his future path. He became a doctor and he devoted his life to healing and to helping others. So I'm going to share with you an excerpt from the first story in The Sleep of Apples. And you'll find that it's uncannily relevant to our current COVID-19 pandemic. What's mine is yours. When my fever hit 105 degrees, my father put me in the hospital. I remember coming home from my Bubby Zelda's 70th birthday party, shivering and sweating and aching all over. Apparently, later that night, I was raving mad and did not know my own name. I was 8 years old, in grade 3. I was in the hospital for 10 days. As soon as I got home, I wanted to see my Bubby. I was on my way out the door when my parents called me into the kitchen and sat me down. They almost never did this unless something terrible had happened. Bubby Zelda's gone, Dad said. Gone where? My dad pulled me into his lap. Bubby came down with the flu. It progressed to pneumonia, a secondary infection we couldn't treat. The antibiotics didn't do much. The bug was resistant. I was too stunned to think, and a bunch of questions flooded my mind. When did she get sick? Why didn't anyone tell me? Did she catch it from me? Was she in the same hospital at the same time? As we're Jewish, everything then happened very fast. After the funeral, we drove to the gravesite at Mount Hebron Cemetery in Queens. There was a huge open hole, the closed casket already lowered before our family arrived, and some burly men who were not part of the family standing around with shovels. Looking down at the casket, I didn't believe that Bubby was inside, or she was trapped, alive and still breathing. I had to know for sure. Panicked, I ran to the hole, sat down on my bottom, and slid fast down into the ditch. The smell was musty, rich, and inside of the earth smell, and inside of the body smell, and I was within all of it now. I heard the group of mourners gasp, my mother cry out, and then my dad was talking softly to me, stooping low and reaching for me. But I was down too far, about 6 feet under, and I was crying and shaking, still coughing a little. We need to open the box. My father shucked off his winter coat, murmuring reassurances to me as he lay on his stomach, his arms extending down into the pit. I raised mine, and he managed to grasp me under my arms. Dad got into a crouch, and with help from the other men, he lifted me out as if I was just being delivered, born out of the very earth. Then my father said, "Ima, forgive me." His words puzzled me. I didn't know why he asked Bubby to forgive him. "Merry monks, find a beautiful stone for Bubby's grave. We put a stone." I didn't want to let him go, but I set about looking for a beautiful rock, sifting through the dirt. When I stood up to find my father, I saw that he was not among the knot of mourners at Bubby's grave. Everyone was talking and sharing memories, so I slipped away and wandered among the gravestones, looking for my dad. At last, I spotted him, sitting on the cold, damp ground in front of a small gravestone of pink granite. I looked at the engraving on the stone, Miriam Gildener, and felt my bones lurch. No one ever called me Miriam, and yet the name was on all of my official forms for school, emblazoned on my birth certificate. "Only like to be called Miriam. 3 years old, going on 16, Dad said softly. "We did everything together." I looked at the tiny, perfect, pink, black, and quartz marbled stone. There was my name and the dates, 1938 to 1941. "When I was 5 years old," Dad said, "I came down with measles. Miriam caught it from me. She died. I lived." So I hope you enjoyed the reading, and please do check out The Sleep of Apples so you can find out what happened to Miri and her dad. Thank you so very much for listening.